Hey everyone, welcome to the Eat to Win show where sports nutrition meets peak performance. Get ready for expert insights, real stories, and tips to help you win with every meal. Let's dive in.
Hi, and welcome to the Winner's Circle in the Eat to Win podcast show. I'm Tavis Piatoli. I'm your host, and we're here to talk all things sports nutrition, business growth, and how we help professionals win. Today, we're honored to have Amy Goodson join us, and she's been around a long time in this industry. She's got a lot of experience, and she's a sports dietitian, entrepreneur, business growth expert who's transitioned from a solopreneur to a successful business owner. Through her courses, consulting, and private practice, she helps professionals scale their business with accountable strategies or actionable strategies. Today, we're going to break down her 5-step framework for thinking bigger and scaling your business. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait to get through these questions. There's a lot of incredible things that we have to ask, and I know a lot of our listeners and viewers are going to be really excited to know what you've done.
Yeah, it's a hot topic, and I think a lot of people have a dream at some level to either have a side hustle or be a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, but sometimes it's a little overwhelming and they don't know where to start and what to do and can they do it and how do they do it. So the goal is to give you some first steps, but then also when you want to grow, how do you actually take those next steps to grow?
So I guess my first question, let's kind of start about your transition into this career. What inspired you to kind of take the leap to go from being like a solopreneur to building a scalable business?
So I'm going to start first by defining a solopreneur and an entrepreneur, because a lot of people, I did not know the answer till I heard that said. I was like, what is that? So solopreneur, think of that as having your own business. It's you and yourself. I like to define that as AKA you keep all your own money. It's a good way to think about it. Entrepreneur means that you are scaling and growing. You probably have multiple business lines, and key feature here, you hire people that now work for you, AKA you start giving your money away. So it is a much more expansive area of business. So a lot of people say I'm an entrepreneur, and they are kind of, but they're really a solopreneur in that they're doing it themselves. And that's the way I was for the first 5+ years. And honestly, Tavis, I sat down, I was having fun, making money, doing whatever, but I kind of really asked myself, like, what is it that I really want to do in regards to leaving an impact on the industry of sports nutrition and then on the profession of sports nutrition? And that kind of come to Jesus moment for me was 3 years ago. And I really decided that I wanted to be able to expand sports nutrition access to athletes that don't typically have it. High school kids, smaller colleges, like small D1s, D2s, D3s, training just as hard, often very lack of resources or none at all. And then from the professional side, there's so many dietitians that want to be sports dietitians. They call me, they email me, they text me, and they have since I first started my career. Let's say I'm a friend to the dietitian and dietetic intern. And so what impact could I make to start opening up doors for dietitians to take that next step to get that, so that dietitians are getting to live their dream being sports dietitians, and that we're expanding access to sports nutrition. Technically, if you marry these two problems together, they solve each other. And so that became, I kind of have joked now that my business has like become my calling. And it's really what made me take the leap to really grow, and what has fueled my decisions and informed them to really just keep growing and keep scaling.
Yeah, you've done so much amazing stuff. And I know we've talked about this a lot in regards to when you build a business, it takes a lot of time. There's a lot of things that go into it. And you have to do things like conduct a business and budget assessment. So first of all, just to kind of tell our listeners, why is it so important to do that? Why is it so important to conduct a business assessment or a budget assessment before you actually can go into that scaling process?
So I talk business assessment. A lot of people think like, oh, I just want to have my own private practice or my own business. And that's vague, real vague. And so really assessing, who is it that you want to serve? How do you want to serve them? And ding, 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 what products and services and programs are you going to provide them with? So looking at that, what do you have already created? What do you have to create? And really looking at, I would say, like, how long is it going to take you to create those things? What can you start to create first? So doing an assessment of who you want to serve and what you're going to do. Then you got to look at the market. Who's already doing that? I'm a big believer that there's plenty of sand in the sandbox for everybody. And there is an open door for most people to do what you want to do. There's plenty of people out there. But doing an assessment of what's out there, who's doing it, what does it cost people, how are you going to do it, and what resources and time and money that it's going to take, which leads us to the budget assessment. I did a talk on this recently, and I literally was said, like, if you do not have a 3 to 6 month savings going, do not start your own business. Like, don't do it. I didn't need it at the beginning. It was as I kept growing. There's a point where you're in so deep, like you're in, there's no going back. And so really, I like to tell performance professionals, dietitians, like, you need to know what you want to make and what you have to make. Those are not the same number. Have to make is pay your bills and eat. Want to make is, yay, where do I want to go on vacation? And so really looking at what are your finances now? What are your resources now? What is it going to take to build out what you need to service your population group, and making sure that you're in a good place to do that, so that it informs, like, how long should you work for yourself so potentially you could build? Then how much money are you going to invest to grow? Because it's a kind of a catch-22, because a lot of times it's like, well, if I invest money, I grow faster, but I'm not making enough money to really invest. So that's kind of a risk. But then if I don't, I grow slower. So, I mean, it's an interesting balancing act, but knowing where you are financially can help you better inform those decisions that you're making.
Outside of the financial metrics, are there any other key metrics that you can give to business owners in regards to evaluating before they make those growth decisions?
I would say one of the biggest things is really just thinking through, like, what do you want to create? Like, what is it? Are you doing courses? Are you doing memberships? Are you doing one-on-ones? And then really business planning. So your metrics can really look, I would say that's going to be what is going to be the result, but really getting a detailed business plan and thinking through what are the reality of these things. Like, I'll get interns because I do an entrepreneurial internship. I'm a preceptor. They got some lofty plans about what's going to sell. And I'm like, oh, simmer that down a little bit. So I think really looking at what you can sell, what the potential is, go with the worst case scenario just in case, so that you can evaluate that against your budget and really determine, okay, if I only make this, does that work? What would be my plan B, or what would be my other areas of revenue streams that I need to create to make this work as a solopreneur and launching into entrepreneur?
Yeah, you mentioned like it's just you sometimes, but I know you have some members on your team. But in order to scale, you have to have some automation. You can't do everything yourself all the time. So let's talk about the automation process. How does automation help business owners grow or scale? And what key can't talk today, systems should they provide?
Okay, so I just added a CRM, a client relationships management system, we've probably been doing it now 8 or 9 months. And I literally ask myself almost every day, why didn't I do this faster? Because ultimately, automations help you work smarter, not harder. You can set up things in advance, and then they just work. It is, I mean, I literally am like, why didn't I not do this so long? It's a financial investment, but from my perspective, automations really help specifically, especially as you're just getting going. They really help with communication, whether that is one-on-one clients, whether that is like your email marketing and email funnel systems. They can help with reaching out to people because, like, so for example, in my business, we have dietitians that see clients. Well, we have automation set up, like for scheduling, like they get reminders. We set up the reminder one time. We never have to do it again. We have a phone number through our CRM. So we can make text codes for anything. But once you set up a text code, you can use that everywhere. You can have automations for it to text them immediately, 2 days later, a week later, 30 days later. So setting up some of these key automations as it relates to email marketing, client retention, and really getting yourself out there, I think are key, because that's where a lot of dietitians and performance professionals get lost in the weeds. They may not have a good system for keeping all their contacts. They may not have a good system for task management. And so when they're trying to find or reach out to people, they don't have it well organized. And that ultimately slows you down and prevents business growth, because you can't reach the people that you need to reach to bring them in to buy your products and services. So those are some of the first ones that I would say that CRM, top of the list of because you can do it all in one place versus having a lot of different platforms. Being able to do it centrally is helpful. I did not do that at first. So we're like migrating stuff in. But anyone who's starting, I'm like, oh my gosh, do it all in one place because it's so much easier.
Well, to do all of this, you have to have time. And in order to probably do it in the time frame you want to do it in, you need a lot of time and a team. So let's talk about the topic of this section is buying back your time and bringing on people. What are some of the signs that it's just time to start to hire someone? You can't do this yourself. And how should entrepreneurs approach their first hire?
So the key when you need to say, I got to hire somebody, is when you're spending so much time working in your business that you don't have time to work on your business. So you see this with a lot of, I would say, solopreneur private practice dietitians and or performance professionals, like you are the personal trainer or you are the physical therapist or you are the dietitian working with the clients. Well, that's active income, meaning you have to be working to make money. Well, if you're spending all your time working in your business to fund it, you don't have a lot of time to work on your business. And so working on your business means really focusing in on how do you grow? How do you expand your services? Are you going to make new products or new service lines? And so if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm spending all my time working in my business, then it's a really key sign that you need to probably hire someone to help take some of that away so that you can then work on your business. So when we talk about hiring, I think you really have to do kind of what we talked about a minute ago about an assessment. What are the things that suck your time and or what are the things that take a lot of time that you just really don't like? Because they ultimately pain you. And think about things that other people can do for you. As a solopreneur to entrepreneur, there are things that only you can do in your business. Only I can go stand on a stage as Amy Goodson and speak. Only I can go to certain meetings. But a lot of people can post my social media. I can give them content. They can put it in Canva. So those are signs that it's like, wow, if I need to do more of this, then I need to be able to hire out for this. So Tavis, there's a great book that I read twice, listened to, I should say, called Buy Back Your Time. And so the concept is, as a business owner, you need to figure out what your hourly rate is. So let's just use $100 so I can do math off the top of my head. And so basically, let's say your hourly rate was $100. That's what you get paid. Your goal is that anything that you can pay someone to do for a quarter of that. So in this case, that would be 25% or $25. So if you can pay someone $25 or less to do that task, you need to buy back your time and that you're going to pay someone else to do that task so that you can reinvest that 25% back into your business to do what only you can do. And those what only you can do things should be what helps promote business growth, business sales, because ultimately that's now you working on your business. So it seems overwhelming, I think, sometimes when you're first getting going to hire people, but a lot of solopreneurs are so into the day-to-day, their time gets sucked by emails and social media and responses and putting things in PowerPoints and all the different things. And someone else could be doing that for you, allowing you to grow the other areas of your business. So buy back your time, get the book, because it's kind of life changing and it's a very stepwise process of how you can actually do that.
When you outsourced, what was the first thing that you did to outsource to free up time for yourself?
Website creation and doing things on websites. So I made my first website and it was fine. Hired someone. And then when the team that I have now, lucky for me, one of my good friends, that's a dietitian, we were grad school roommates, loves to do the back end of websites and things of that nature. Like I want to create presentation content. She would like to put it in PowerPoint. So she was actually the first person that I hired to help me really create my website. I wrote the content. I directed what I wanted to look like. She made it look pretty. I created my first course and she put it in Canva and made it look pretty. I don't prefer those things. Can I do them? Yes, but they take time and she loves doing them. And then I can move on to creating other things. So that type of stuff, website, also social media, I would say not even writing your social media, but just like managing it for you and putting it, scheduling it and all the things. Those are some simple tasks. Like you might be the only one that can write your content, but someone else can spend the 1 hour putting it into your template on a workbook, on a PowerPoint slide or whatever. So that was the first thing that I outsourced. And I don't like that kind of stuff. So that was life-changing for me. I told her she's forever employed because I still don't know how to change a logo on the bottom of a PowerPoint. I'm like, well, Alicia, you're going to work here forever because I still don't know how to change a logo on a PowerPoint, and I have about 42 logos.
Is Amy Goodson 85 years old presenting and still changing logos on a PowerPoint?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. And it frustrates me. I don't want to know. I was like, you're forever employed because I don't want to know how to do this. So that was my first move. Some of those basic, more task oriented things, but that's her passion. She loves that color, find the color and the center it and all the things. So I'm like, more power to you. Go for it.
Stay with us as we take a short break to thank our sponsors. You're listening to the Eat to Win podcast with your host, Tavis Piatoli.
Liquid Fuel is a new sports and hydration product formulated by a sports dietitian to give athletes the edge to train and compete longer. It contains the low glycemic carbohydrate platinose, designed to keep blood sugar levels more stable to provide energy for 3 to 4 hours without the blood sugar crash seen in other leading sports drinks. Its unique 4-part electrolyte formula includes 50% of your daily magnesium need to optimize muscle function. Liquid Fuel is naturally sweetened along with no artificial ingredients or colors. Currently being used by high school, collegiate, and professional teams, Liquid Fuel allows you to live life with the confidence knowing you're properly fueling your body. Visit drinkliquidfuel.com and use the code MSD10 to get 10% off your offer.
All right, welcome back to the Eat to Win podcast, where we're talking with Amy Goodson about scaling from a solopreneur to an entrepreneur. So let's dive back in. All right, let's talk about really just connections. We know connections are such a critical part of any business, and you build relationships. Networking is so important. And I've seen you at so many conferences, networking, helping, doing things to grow your business, asking a lot of questions. What's your approach to make a meeting a full connection that will drive business success?
You need to do it with intentionality. So going to conferences or workshops or even meetings or even who you're emailing, you need to know who do you want to talk to and what do you want to get out of that. Because if you kind of go in blindly, then you may not ask the right questions and you might leave thinking, oh man, I should have done this, or oh man, I should have tried to meet with that person. So I am a big believer that networking and connections is the answer to literally everything. If you know me, I am psycho addicted to LinkedIn. I think it's the greatest thing ever. You can use it like a private investigator tool. So like, for example, I'm going to an event next week and I had my intern go look at all the speakers. It's kind of more of a corporate type thing, but go look at all the speakers and pull all of their LinkedIn handles so that I could go connect with them. Click, click, click. Took me 10 minutes to connect with them before I go to the event next week where they're going to be speaking at. And, you know, if I go to a sports event, like, what do I want to get out of that? What do I want to learn out of that? So I think it's key to know who you want to talk to and what you would like to get out of it. Because if you go in blindly, you might make a meeting, but you may not make a sincere connection. The other thing that I would say is after you meet people, after you connect with them, that can be in person or virtually. Send them a message. Send them a message on LinkedIn. If they connect with you, you often get their email. And so following up with them is key to really try to further that connection. And then especially if it's someone you would like to collaborate with or work with, how can you, reaching out to them is going to be a next step to see, hey, furthering a conversation about what could potentially be done to work together.
I love how you mentioned LinkedIn and collaboration, because we're going to be talking about that topic next. I have a business with a guy I met on LinkedIn, random, not even in the state. He's in a different state. 14 years ago, we just connected on LinkedIn, developed a friendship, and now we have something that we're promoting and using in the world of sports.
So I didn't know y'all met on LinkedIn. That's amazing. I'm telling y'all, LinkedIn, and I don't give up. Oh, I will go. If there's a company I want to connect with or a sports brand, I will find everyone in there till somebody answers me. I don't even need the right person. I just need someone that'll answer me and connect me to the right person. Recently did this with a very large organization. And he was like, so great to connect with you. I am not the right person, but this guy, blah, 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 is. And I'll, if you'll send me what you want to say, email it to me, I'll forward it to him on your behalf. All you need is one person. One person. And you never know, people will respond to you. My business now takes insurance for one-on-one services, and 2 major insurance companies are closed to dietitians in my area. I found a guy's name, literally vice president. He responded to me and within 4 days got me to the right person, and I had someone getting me a contract.
It's amazing. So let's kind of go back to collaborations. With My Sports D, Ronnie and I met at a conference many years ago. I know you at conferences, you speak to a lot of people. How can dietitians and small business owners use collaborations to kind of reach and expand their reach and credibility?
So when we talk about collaborations, you can obviously collaborate with a dietitian, but I really recommend collaborating with people in other industries. So often with us, that could be athletic training, strength and conditioning, that could be coaches, different organizations. So in a business class that I once took, he said, you need to figure out your OPAs and your OPSs to build your network. So how can you get in front of OPA, other people's audiences, and stand on other people's stages? Because when you're able to do that, you now have access to their audience that you may never have. So great example, I met a dear friend now, colleague, and she is a financial wellness educator guru in the sports world. She works with 12 NFL teams, Tavis, LSU, with the Spurs, and all these different things. Well, her and I were like cut from the same mold. She works in the sports world doing like financial education. I'm obviously in the nutrition world, but hers is all about financial wellness. Well, we just collaborated together to actually create a sports spin on the corporate playbook for physical and financial wellness. So we came up with our sports angle and looked at how does that relate to both physical wellness, nutrition and exercise, and then financial. We stinking created an entire workshop together. And so like, I'm never going to interface with her people necessarily because she's in the finance world. She's probably never going to interface with me, but together we can really cross collaborate and be able to reach more people, which potentially is going to offer more people to your services and your products.
Love that. Love that. And kind of leads into our next topic of building profitable partnerships with individuals. What makes a partnership truly profitable, and how do you identify the right ones?
Profitable partnership is a win-win. So you are getting a benefit out of that. The benefit can be variable, like what that benefit is to you at that time with that group, but it needs to be definitely win-win. And that's typically give, and not just take. So oftentimes we want to figure out how do we get that service or that product or whatever it is to someone. But I would say really collaborating. I think collaborating partnership goes hand in hand. So how can you work together to see like this is going to benefit you, but it's also going to benefit me. If you're partnering with different people, there's going to have to be work done. So like the example I just gave with my friend Hillary, like we're doing this. So her graphic guy is making our PDF lead magnet and my director of operations is lining up all of the automations and funnels in our CRM. So we're like, boom, working together to get a bigger impact. So when we talk about those different partnerships, you really need to figure out what do you want out of the partnership? What does the other person want out of the partnership? And how are y'all going to work together to do that? I will tell you, I don't care if you're partnering with your best friend, if you're partnering with someone you know, get a contract, get an agreement, and really lay out, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what you're going to do. And we're going to sign on the dotted line so that we can both be held accountable. And there's no question about what we're going to do. One of my dear friends and I, she was helping me with something. And we wrote a contract for ourselves to sign and say, this is what we're agreeing to with each other so that we can go, no one else has it. It's just us. So I think that that's key because then you're managing expectations at the beginning and then looking at what can I give to you? What can you give to me for ultimately us both to benefit both in expansion and reach, whether that's selling something, marketing something, but it has to work for both people. And I would say the more clear the expectation, the better it's going to be and the least questions there could be on the back end.
Let's kind of dive into, and I love that. Yeah, it's a long process. It's a lot of work, a lot of time, and a lot of collaboration. But like you said, you put systems in place to be successful. I want to kind of shift into an area called mindset shifts for growth, because this takes a lot of toll on your physical thought process. I know we've wanted to give up so many times in the pursuit of success for this business, and you get to the point where you're like, do we want to keep doing this? And you have to shift your mindset. What are some common mindset blocks that keep people stuck as solopreneurs, and how can they overcome them?
A lot of people, when they create something, service, course, product, and it doesn't immediately sell or take off, for some reason in social media, we think everything should take off. People immediately go, oh, I failed at that. And I would encourage you to not look at it as a failure or a no. Look at it as, okay, why didn't that work? Like, I don't know if I'm just kind of self-confident or if, like something I'm like, okay, why didn't that sell? Did it not sell because I marketed at a bad time? Did we not do a good job of marketing? Is it too expensive? Is it too long? Like, what's the scenario? It's not typically that you failed. It's that you might need to adapt or rearrange a piece of something. Great example, my mastermind course for sports dietitians. The first time we launched it, I was like, so great, I'm gonna launch it. We're gonna like start it in January. Everyone's gonna wanna join. New year, new you. Okay, well, guess what? If you're gonna launch a mastermind in January, that means you're marketing it in December when no one cares about work. They care every day. They actually care less. And I'm asking them to spend money on a mastermind and they're spending all their money on Christmas presents. So I was like, this is a terrible idea. So I'm like, that was bad marketing. So we shifted, and instead of launching it going into the new year where you have to market in December and going into summer where everyone's like trying to get out of school or whatever they're doing, going on vacation, now we launch it in April and October. Not that many things, as many going on in April and October. And I have a clear month to market. So was it that my product or service was bad? No, I just didn't have my marketing plan was off. So one would be, don't look at failure, look at it as another way. And then I would say really being adaptable. A lot of times we have a dream, like, I want to do this. And we think like that's always the way it's going to work. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to adapt something. I'm like, oh man, we're doing it like that, but now I need to do it like that. And I always like to use, like Thomas Edison, and that like 1,000 times he tried to create the light bulb and they're like, you failed. And he was like, no, I just found 1,000 ways it didn't work. I love that because like it didn't work that way. Adapt. So I think in order to be a solopreneur, entrepreneur, you constantly have to adapt or figure out what's another way I could do that, or how do I tweak that? And so really, I think just leaving behind that failure mindset and always have a growth mindset, and that you're always looking to grow. You're always looking to expand. A lot of times I get a lot of people in my business that work for me going, you can't do it like that. And I'm like, I want to do it like that. And I will just find another, and I'm like, okay, let's think about another way to do it. And so I think you have to really use some of your creativity, and then just always be thinking of tweak, adapt, be flexible, tweak, adapt, be flexible. If you do that and you keep your mindset like that, no's aren't as big of a deal. Things not taking off as fast aren't as big of a deal, because the reality is we were just on a group call, and one of my friends was like, pretty much if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to get like one yes for every 20 no's, and you get a lot of no's. So building that resilience is key. It's not that they don't want you, that just may not be what they need right now. So having that resilience and just shaking it off and like, this is a no, but it's because there's probably a yes over here, I think is key to staying on course with what you're trying to do.
I'm sure there's been plenty of times you've had sleepless nights, feeling overwhelmed, stress. What kind of advice would you give someone who's feeling overwhelmed about scaling, and what's the first small step that they can take today?
The one thing I would tell you is know what your why is. So a lot of times we start getting really wrapped up in what we're doing and all those different things. I've heard it said that why power is a lot stronger than willpower. And when you know what your why is and you can go back to that, it often, I think, can refuel you for what you need to keep doing. So a lot of times our why isn't just like, oh, I want to build a course. Like one of my whys is I would like to buy a lake house that's near my family so that I could be there present more often to see my little niece and nephew grow up and go to their soccer games and their horseback riding things. And my parents are in their 70s. I want to be able to be around. So yeah, I want to do all these things in my business, but that's one of my whys. And so it does fuel me. And I think it can revitalize you a little bit more. And you just have to know your barriers. Some people like the barrier and they just hit a blockade and they've got to stop. So what is it for you? Do you need to rest one day of the week? Do you need to not keep going? Some people can go longer than others. Some people need more rest. And I think knowing what that is for you and what refills you. So like for me, I love quality time with people. Don't ever buy me a present. Like I don't really need gifts, but I love quality time. So if I'm feeling like, I probably need to get a friend and go have a glass of wine on a patio. And that will like, reboot. And then I'm back. And so you have to know what that is for you, because it's not going to be something specific, that you've got to know your why and then what refuels you to get back on course with doing what you got to do to make the why happen.
We're going to move into what's called the rapid fire round. This is going to be just random questions, or I say random questions that are related to this, but some things that you are personally attached to. All right. Before we wrap up, though, let's kind of dive into a few questions. What's the best business advice you've ever received?
Best business advice I have ever received is probably like, keep going. Just keep going. And if it doesn't work, adapt. If it doesn't work, adapt. If it doesn't work, adapt. Because if you're always focused on the way you thought it should go, you typically will be sadly disappointed, because it doesn't often go like that. If you're more willing to be flexible and adapt, things aren't gonna rattle you as bad. And you're gonna manage some of those no's and not workings and whatever a lot easier.
You have a favorite book or podcast for entrepreneurs?
Favorite book is legit Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. It is so good and so helpful. Podcast, I just found this podcast. It's Entre Leadership with Dave Ramsey. I am loving that. It's all about entrepreneurship and leadership. And they pick a topic and they do call-ins and they coach people, or he coaches people. Sometimes he has other people in there with him, walking through their entrepreneurship problems. And there are people that own businesses. And even though it may not be our exact problem, you can learn a lot from how they're coaching them to answer their questions. So Entre Leadership is the podcast.
Is there one tech tool you cannot live without?
Now I would tell you a CRM. I wouldn't have known that like a year ago, but I'm telling you, a CRM is the answer to really automating and making things easier. You set it up, it rolls on its own. So I would hands down go CRM.
One mistake you've made in business that's helped you grow?
I am a person that always keeps going, and a lot of people will get you for not resting and not doing this. And there's times that I've been like, I don't know if I call it a mistake, but I've probably worked much longer and harder than I should. Yet at the same time, I feel like that's really helped me benefit as I've gone along. So I don't know if you call it a mistake or I don't really think they're a mistake, but kind of a thing many people say you shouldn't do that I've done. And I think ultimately it's actually benefited me in the long run.
Last question on this, go-to stress relief when business gets overwhelming. Is there like, this is my go-to?
Quality time, 100%. Friend, quality time. That is what refuels me. Like, there's all the different love languages. I'm like, quality time than all the other ones. Sit, talk with a friend, have a glass of wine, chat it up. That is ultimately what refuels me the most.
Let's close out last two questions. There's one key takeaway you'd like your audience to remember about scaling their business. What would that be?
Figure out what's the next best step. So a lot of times we think really far. We're like, 5-year plan. You're going to change that plan so many times. You need a vision, but I've heard it hold tightly to the dream, hold loosely into how you're actually going to accomplish the dream. And a lot of people you talked about being overwhelmed. They get very overwhelmed out there because they're like, oh my God, how am I going to do that? And I'm like, what's the next step you have to take? Maybe that's putting a lead magnet on your website. Maybe that's paying someone $10, or whatever, $15 an hour to do your social media or something like that. So think big, but also think incremental so that you're able to take the next step, because when you can just take the next step, less overwhelming, and you actually will probably get to the end or to the goal faster because you were able to just incrementally do it.
All right. Last thing, where can our listeners connect with you, learn more about your programs, your courses, everything you do?
So for our professional side, it's Amy Goodson RD courses, and we have a variety of courses. So sports nutrition education, mastermind. We have some short mini courses that are all on demand. We now have a CSSD exam study guide, and then we actually white labeled a CRM to help dietitians. It's a HIPAA compliant one, and so I can provide it to dietitians and performance professionals cheaper than what you can. It's saved my life. So I'm like, let me see if I can save other people's lives. And then on Instagram, Amy Goodson RD courses, we're always trying to put out good information to help people, tips, strategies from what we've learned, what we do, and what we know.
All that will be in our show notes, so be sure to check that out. Visit Amy's site. She does a phenomenal job. She's got a beautiful site, but also just really easy to follow and really easy to see all the things that she has available. So if you're a young RD or even an RD that's just looking to grow your career, be sure to take Amy's courses and reach out. Now, I have one question for you that you didn't even know I was going to ask.
Okay, let's hear it.
So this is what I consider, I guess, a curveball round. I may have asked you in the past on a podcast, but I love music. That's my probably number one over maybe sports. Sports and music are like one-on-one. But if you could be the lead singer of any band, who would that be?
I'm gonna throw a curveball at you. I wouldn't be a lead singer. I would legit be a backup dancer. I was a dancer growing up, and I used to joke. I'm like, I really think my sideline life job would have been to be a backup dancer. I think that would have been like I'm one of those people that you watch the Super Bowl, or so you think you can dance, and my muscles are like tweaking with the move. So I wouldn't have been a lead singer. I would have been a backup dancer in their band.
I like it. Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. Great information. Everyone, please be sure to check out Amy's website, all the courses, everything she offers. As always, it's always good to chat. I felt like this was just a regular conversation and we weren't recording anything. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Tavis.
That's it for today's episode of the Winner Circle and the Eat to Win podcast show. A huge thank you to Amy Goodson for sharing her expertise on business growth, automation, and scaling a successful practice. If you found today's episode valuable, be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your community. Until next time, keep winning.
Thanks for joining us on the Eat to Win show. Remember, every meal is a step toward victory. Until next time, stay strong and keep winning.